Hi and welcome to episode 7 of The Kindness Project. Today I'm joined by... I went really serious there, didn't I? Shall I start again?
No,
just carry on. Just carry on. I'll just carry on. Today I'm joined by, as you just heard, she's my daughter in the water, in the famous words of Loudon Wainwright Jr. That's my daughter in the water. It's Charlotte. How you doing, Charlotte?
Not bad, not bad.
Good.
And I am joined by the man you just heard introducing me. The man who can think himself out of most situations, Chris Dames.
Well, so I'm taking that as a compliment, and maybe I'm just thinking myself into a situation where that's a compliment. Explain what you mean.
You can think your way out of most situations. If you get stuck in jail, you can get yourself out again.
I'm not convinced thinking myself out of jail will particularly work, but thanks for that.
You can think up a solution.
Yeah, I hopefully I'll try my hardest, but
not to end up in jail.
You know what, right? So there's a few songs that I love, and genuinely, that Loudon Wainwright Jr. song makes me cry every time. There's that makes me cry. At the minute, Paolo Nutini, Better Man, just has me in tears. This isn't question of the podcast. This is just something I've thought about. What song makes you cry?
I've got a couple actually. Keith Urban, Tonight I Want to Cry.
See, I listened to that and I thought that was quite schmaltzy, but you enjoy it, don't you? Yeah.
Collide. I mean, it's not my favourite song, but it does.
Who's that by?
I don't know. I just found it on YouTube and I just keep listening to it. It just makes me want to cry.
Okay.
What else? What makes me want to cry? I had it in thought. I had it in my brain. There was a song I was thinking about and I can't remember what it is now.
Don't worry, we'll come back to it.
Dad's song. That's it.
Dad's song.
Yeah, it was written by a guy and he wrote it for his dad and he kept telling his dad that he was going to write a song for him.
Okay.
And only after his dad died did he end up writing the song for him.
Okay.
So it's all about how he misses his dad and how his dad was his inspiration.
Gotcha.
So
there's a song from either the late 80s or early 90s called The Living Years. I think it was by Mike and the Mechanics, and that's a similar sort of story. So he said it's a story about what a son wished he'd do before his dad arrived. And really interesting, I've been reading loads at the minute about things that happen in our life that are quite tragic but motivate us to do things that are positive because we realise that actually life is really short.
Yes.
So maybe that's something we'll explore in a future podcast, because I think being inspired to kindness by tragedy is something that can potentially be a recurring theme. So we'll explore that. However, what I want to get to is
the Twitter handles.
Oh, sorry. Let's do the Twitter handles first.
This is usually where I have to insert the Twitter.
Go on then, put the Twitter handles. Insert the Twitter handles. Carry on podcasting. Insert the Twitter handles.
Okay.
They're not the Twitter handles of a very naughty boy.
Don't quote Monty Python on me, mate.
What did the Twitter handles ever do for us?
Irrigation.
So what? Right, what's our Twitter handles? Don't forget the H. Do not forget the H.
Hola, kindness.
Where's the H? Hola, holla. Holla is the way we do it. Holla. Right, okay. So how's that spelled? Holla. It's not an H in there, is there? Surely. I didn't hear a H.
Silent H.
A silent. It's a silent H.
It's a soft H,
guys. It's a soft H. So how's that spelled?
HOLA, kindness.
HOLA, kindness. And the email address is
HOLA@kindnessproject.co.uk.
HOLA@thekindnessproject.co.uk. Now, we do this every week, and most weeks we get it wrong. So if you'd actually like to get our Twitter handles personally, our Twitter handles for this podcast, plus our email address, you can find them all on www.thekindnessproject.co.uk.
Make sure you don't get that one wrong either.
Let me say it again. www.thekindnessproject.co.uk. Now,
since when did WW only have two W's? It's WW.
So I'm going to do it one more time, just for complete clarity. www.thekindnessproject.com.gov.co.uk, and now we're completely clear. We can get on with the rest of the show. Nanny Bob. So Nanny Bob is my wife's mum, right? Charlotte knows that, but I thought for the purpose of the listeners, it's worth explaining. And she phoned the office the other day. We Cassie and I run a business together, and phoned the office to get Mum's number because she didn't have it on her phone.
She called me as well.
Did she? She called you after though, didn't she?
Yeah.
Because what I did is say, okay, no worries. Have you got a pen and paper? She went, yeah. And I went, right. Are you ready? She went, yeah. And I went, 2, 4, 7, 8, 6, 87, 424.
But UK numbers are supposed to have 07 at the start.
Yeah, I know. But it was only when I got to about 20 digits did she realise it was a little prank. It was a little prank, and she just called me something and put the phone down, which is what all mother-in-law should do. So we've got. It seems that the question of the podcast, we've got an official question of the podcast, but we've also got an unofficial question of the podcast. So please, what prank? The unofficial question of the podcast. This isn't the official one. Is what's the best prank you've ever played on somebody? In the spirit of kindness. I don't want any cruelty. I only want kind pranks.
I don't really play pranks, but there's this thing that some of the boys do in my drama club. And what they do, we play this game, it's called Grandma's Keys.
Yep.
And someone has to stand and they have to turn around, and we've all got to work together to get the keys. And what some of the boys in our drama club do, because the floor has been made up, it's now really slidey and skinny. So what they do, to distract the person at the front, slide across the floor.
Good move.
And we're all standing there, some of us are shuffling forward as they're paying attention to the sliders across the floor.
Ah, right, okay.
And we just get closer.
Is that like Mr. Wolf? It sounds a bit like Mr. Wolf.
Yeah, you've got to take the keys back.
Gotcha.
So you've got to get back without them figuring out who's got the keys.
Gotcha. But yeah, a floor slide is always appreciated. So that's good. And we've also, if you want to answer some questions of the podcast of previous weeks, we've got quite a few. So, what is the most inspiring movie ever? Are most people generally good? The best use of an egg. If you could be a character from any favourite book, what would it be?
Countries you want to visit.
Countries you want to visit. If you were the supreme ruler of the world, what would you do? And, most importantly, feel free to answer the number one unofficial podcast question of the week. Do you like Nick Cage? Really?
And also don't feel that you can't ask questions.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Feel free to ask questions.
Listen, we want your stories of kindness. We want your questions of kindness. We want your podcast questions of the week. You should be giving us podcast questions of the week.
We like contributions, guys.
So we want contributions at the Twitter handle, via email, or on the website. So feel free to get in touch on any of those.
Did we do
on
our
any of those
individual
things.
Twitter handles?
Would you like to share that, Charlotte?
Okay, you start.
Okay, so my individual Twitter handle is at Chris CHRIS Dames. D for Delta, A for Alpha, E for Echo, M for Mother, S for Sugar. And yours is?
Charlotte, at Charlotte, CHARLOTTE, J, Dames, DAEMS.
So we've not even got to the official question of the podcast.
This should be fun.
Okay, are you ready for it? You don't know what this is yet, do you?
Drum roll.
Drum roll. Okay, is our drum roll.
Good use of the box.
Question of the podcast is, what is your favourite piece of trivia ever?
Elvis Presley died on the toilet eating a hamburger.
It's not a bad bit of trivia. That is a pretty good bit of trivia. My favourite bit of trivia is who used the first ATM machine in the UK?
Don't know.
See, this is going to be lost on you, but the answer is Reg Farney from On the Buses.
Who?
Charlotte is looking at me completely blankly, but hopefully
I'm guessing
listeners...
I need more 80s education.
This isn't even 80s, this is like the 60s and 70s. But Reg Farney, I mean, look, I've taught you about cribbins. I need to, because you play the ukulele, I certainly need to teach you about George Formby.
Talk me about the Fraggles.
The Fraggles are awesome. The A-Team's awesome. Knight Rider's pretty good. But yeah,
He-Man, the Master of the Universe.
it was all right. On a second viewing, it's probably not as good. But
Voltron.
I've talked to you about Nick Cage quite a lot.
Your dislike for him.
Yeah, I mean, look, he might change my mind. And Nick, if you're listening, please write in and tell me why you're such a lovely fella. But shall we get on with the show?
Oh, yes.